Welcome everybody to our first episode of Patch Notes. I am your host Drake, joined today by my co-host Coop,
Hey, how's it going?
and we have our first guest here today. We have Coach Smith Blanco joining us from Deer Creek High School.
Hi. Nice to see you guys.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. I think a good place to start here, since this is our first episode, Coop, is I think let's give a quick rundown about what is Patch Notes,
Yeah,
and then we'll kind of get into the meat and potatoes here with Coach Smith Blanco.
yeah, absolutely. Great place to start. So Patch Notes is really just a spot to interview coaches who've been in the Scholastic Esports space for a while, usually over a season or two, and it's an opportunity for them to talk about all the lessons they learned through trial and error over one, two, three, or many seasons, and then kind of take that and share it out to newer coaches or even existing coaches to kind of give them some of that expert knowledge so the newer coaches can hit the ground running. So the Patch Notes is literally just that. So if you've ever played a video game, especially these competitive ones, when the Patch Notes come out, if you don't read them, you're going to be behind. So the goal is to kind of keep everybody on their toes and ready to go and up to date. So that's the Patch Notes.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks. I think this is a great segue talking about us and kind of the inception of Patch Notes. And let's talk about Coach Smith here and give us an introduction into who you are.
Yeah, so my name is Kate Smith. Almost married, so it'll be Blanco in a few weeks, just 2 weeks. But I started out at Edmond Memorial High School, where it was back in 2019, actually, where I kind of got something started for Edmond Public Schools. I was based just on a group of kids that wanted to play League of Legends. It came from my background was actually as a Heroes of the Storm player. And I went to go see the World's Finals once for Heroes of the Storm, and then I was hooked. I knew I wanted to coach high school, and so and like provide a space for those kids and get to connect with kids like coaches get to connect, but on like something that I love. I didn't play a ton of video games in high school, but I knew about that sphere and playing HOTS, Heroes of the Storm, that led me to doing League of Legends. I foolishly thought that they would be close to each other. Yeah, but I had to push it through Edmond Public Schools, and it ended up getting approved as not just a club, but also a class. And that's kind of the way that most esports do it in Oklahoma now. Edmond is one of the bigger districts. It's the third largest district in Oklahoma. So when I pushed it through for Edmond, other schools started to fall in line, which is really great. And I also was one of the founding members of Oklahoma Esports League, which is the grassroots league in Oklahoma. And we also played in Play VS some, but back then things were a little different and not everything was really easy through Play VS. So we mostly used OESL as our competition because there were more schools in it. It's a free league. So yeah, that's kind of my background. Then I moved to Deer Creek High School, which is where I am now, which is amazing because there's 3 of us at Deer Creek High School.
Oh, wow.
And that makes things just so much easier. But I remember doing it solo. And now I have help. So
You have 3 esports coaches with you?
we do have 3 esports coaches at Deer Creek High School. Yeah.
Wow.
2 of us are paid. And then the third is my fiance. So he just helps.
Nice. Well, that's amazing. Having extra support's huge. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's a great introduction. I kind of want to take a piece of that and kind of break that apart a little bit. So let's go back to your first intro into starting up a program, and let's talk about that for a second. So, what was it like in creating a program from scratch? Like, was it hard to get buy-in from not just maybe the school itself, like the students, but from admin, from the parents? Like, what's that process like for maybe a coach who is interested in starting something up, has some students reaching out? Can you give us kind of a background on that?
Yeah. So every school, in my experience, has a process for starting new clubs. And I didn't know Edmond Memorial's process at the time, but I did know I taught pre-AP chemistry at the time. It was called that because that's what it was called back then. And then some other kid that was in a different pre-AP chem class heard that I loved Here's the Storm, heard that I love esports. So he got 4 of his friends to commit to playing league with him and came to me and like, I want to do this. I really want to do this. And I had already been wanting to do that for a while. So I said, okay, his name was Josh. Okay, Josh, you need to get through kind of the red tape. You have to be the one. I know that the process is that you have to get people to sign a petition saying that they want this club to happen. And I will automatically be your sponsor and I'll help push it through, but you have to get the student signatures. So he grabbed that form and within a day he had like 50 signatures on that form.
I'm not surprised.
He took it around and he did not ask kids to join esports. He just told them he needed their signature.
Oh.
So he got just kids to sign it and sign it and sign it. And I did not want to start esports with the plethora of esports that there are out there. I wanted to dip my toes in with just League of Legends first because it was closest to Heroes of the Storm. So I said, okay, we're going to start with this League of Legends team and my group of 5 freshmen that jumped in with me. And that was in 2019. And I called the tech director at one of the other high schools in Tulsa, which is a very large high school also. And he was trying to start an esports league, the Oklahoma Esports League. And I said, you need to put me on your board. I can give you a good perspective. I'll probably be one of the only girl coaches for a while. So put me on your board so that, you know, I can provide my perspective also. And he said, yeah, if you want to be on the board, you're on the board. And so since then, I've been on the OESL board. I sort of just told him to put me on it. And now that was in 2019, the fall of 2019. In the spring of 2020, COVID hits. And so all of our competitions ceased at spring break. We never got to go to state. We were winning our competitions, but we never got to go to state because everything got canceled, right? So that was my turn to learn League of Legends. So I went on this coaching website and I paid someone to coach me in League. And that also gave me time to interact with admin at that point, right? Because I had already gotten the club started, but I knew this had to transition into a sport. And so I was constantly in contact with them. I was showing them, I published an esports letter for the school every single week, telling them whether we had won or lost. I actually gave them a breakdown of the game. I knew no one probably read it, but I wanted to show that we were doing things. And so I put a lot of effort into showing admin that we were doing something and we were winning. And we actually partnered with a local college to use their facility. And at the time we used one that was down in Oklahoma City. We ended up being able to transition to one that was much closer, which is very useful. But that helped admin as well, that we were not taking any money from them at the time because they had no money to give me. And then working with them, I then asked like, okay, what do I do to get this on the schedule? And that was a whole other set of red tape. But I just constantly asked them what the next step was. And that was like the key phrasing that I used. And I said, okay, what's the next step? What do I have to do now? And they would say, now you have to come up with a curriculum. And I said, okay, that's my next step. And so I would go get a curriculum. And then I said, what do they do for football? And he kind of ran me through that. And then I was like, okay, now that I have a curriculum, what's the next step? And he's like, you have to get on the board meeting. I said, okay, that's the next step. And so I would just constantly do whatever they told me I had to do. And there were so many steps. And I recognized that those were probably put in place to stop like classes that aren't going to fill from going in. But I was going to get there. And they also told me that I needed to show interest in the class. So I had a meeting after school one day that was just for kids interested in esports. And I had over 50 kids sign up for esports.
Wow.
Now, at the time, they thought that there was going to be first-person shooters. And I thought maybe we could get Overwatch in there. But Edmond is very difficult to push first-person shooters through. And not even Overwatch, because it's too realistic for them, can go through. So a lot of those kids did end up dropping, but we did get a really good core for 4 games at the time. They were Smite, League of Legends, Rocket League, and Smash. That's how we kind of started the second year after I got the esports program. Then I remember sitting in that board meeting, like face to face. They had actually scheduled me they had like a special board meeting that they called like 24 hours in advance during the day. And I had to go to that. And one of my admin had to cover for my class. And he was like, they're going to have it right now. You got to go. So then I drove to admin center And I sat there and I called two of my buddies from a local college, and they came and sat with me. And then the school board kind of asked me questions for about 3 hours about esports. Yeah. And they were kind of wacky questions. You got to be ready for those and kind of roll with it. One of them was like, I don't understand how this is going to be healthy for children. People are just watching other people play video games. And I said, well, that was the one that I was pretty good about being very measured in my responses. But for that one, I said something like, well, when people watch a football game, I don't know how healthy that is either. You know, it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just sitting
There you
there
go.
watching the football game.
You
So
gotta make it relatable
that
too.
was the only thing that I kind of pushed
Yeah.
back a little bit on. The rest of it, I just gave them straight up answers. I came with data about scholarships. I did a ton of research actually on like game ratings and how that process, like even how there's like a board that does that and how the government set that up. And only a few games have ever changed their rating, and I knew about those. So the 3-hour grill was fun. And then they were like, well, we'll allow this on the board meeting, but we're not 100% sure we're going to go for it. And I said, that's fine. Because the next day was going to be their voting meeting. And so I told all 5 freshmen they were sophomores at the time, that they needed to come sit at that board meeting. And they all sat right next to me. And then we stared those board members down so that they could know
Yeah.
that these are the kids that they're going to say no to right here, right? They're right here. You need to look at these children when you vote yes or no. And in Edmond Public Schools, they try to vote together in general. And then there was one person that did not vote with the rest for this particular thing. So it was a little bit more controversial than a lot of the other things that they vote for. But it did pass. To a 4-1 vote passed. So
that was for the class?
That was for the class.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they actually got on the mic. Even the kid, the girl that voted against it, she got on the mic and she was like, I just want everyone to know that regardless of how I vote, I think that this particular person is incredibly passionate and we need to all clap for her. And they all clapped for me in the entire room. And I'll never forget that moment. And I was like really emotional then because I had been pushing so hard for this to happen. And I went home that day and I think I fell asleep because I was so tired after that whole process, but I knew I had it. And then after that, it was just the process of understanding, I think, how I could get the kids their competitions other than just OESL. What could we participate in? How could I get these kids collegiately? Like, how could I funnel them into the collegiate system? How could I make friends with the college coaches and then have them notice my team and be able to interact with them more? And I was like, well, what's the process for football? And I just went through all that steps. And that kind of led me to really building that program for Edmond Memorial High School. And in the end, we ended up winning about 9 state championships. So.
Okay. Well,
Casual drop there at the end.
And that's only the Play VS championships. We won other OESL championships.
Oh.
I just don't remember how many.
So double-digit championships is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for certain. Because we won league, I think, 3 times in OESL as well.
So basically, DJ Khaled made the whole song about you. We get it. Okay.
Yeah, all they do is win.
So we talked about league. Let's talk about some other like programs you got going up. You talked about the Smite, Rocket League, and Super Smash. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about kind of the process of getting those going? Or is it as I guess as easy to start up as the League of Legends was? You had like a roster immediately.
I did at Memorial, yes. Once I had dipped my toes in with League of Legends and I knew the process for what to do and how to get them in, all I had to do was kind of say, okay, we're going to have a meeting. You just need to sign up for the class, but these are the only sports that we're playing. Mm-hmm. So don't sign up if you want to play Overwatch. Don't sign up if you want to play Valorant. Don't sign up if you want to play, COD or whatever, because these are the sports that we are allowed to play. And then Smite, actually, those kids were not able to take it because a lot of them were seniors. And so they were really very busy. So that Smite team, that was kind of crazy. All 5 of them came to me and they're like, we play Smite. You need to let us play Smite. Like, we are really good at Smite. And I said, okay, we'll play Smite if you really want to, but you got to be there. I'm not just going to do this all on my own. You have to be there for the games. And they set up their own practices, and then they came together. And that was actually the year that Play BS pulled out of Smite. There was a year, they had it for a year. We played in that year and we won. And then the next year, halfway through the year, they pulled it for the next semester. But we got contacted by a national league and asked if we would do that, and then we did that, and we won that too. So that was really nice. They worked very hard for that. So it was really good. I took a picture with those kids on the day that like all of them graduated high school. It was crazy. Awesome. But yeah, so that program was very successful. Now for Rocket League, I've just been very blessed, I think. Whenever I started my Rocket League program, another kid walked in my door and he said, I'm really good at Rocket League. And I was like, okay, everyone's telling me they're like really good at Rocket League, because they'd be like, oh, I'm Diamond. And that impressed me as a League player. I'm like, you're Diamond? Oh my gosh, you're so good. We're going to be fine. And it turns out that you really have to have an SSL to win Rocket League. Yeah. But luckily, this kid was an SSL. He's actually, I think his team made RLCS last time, or almost made RLCS. But he is one of the best players. He is probably the best player I will ever have for Rocket League. He was ranked A in 6-mans. So that kind of thing, he was just very good at Rocket League. But the year he came in, we had started esports as a sophomore when he was a freshman, but I only did League that year. So when he was a sophomore, I did Rocket League too. The only problem was that he was so much better, and he could feel the difference between him and the other ones. I mean, even the other kids below him were like GC, champ, but there was still, the gap was just too big. And so he would just make it he was just the show, right? He would just go up and try to do everything. He tried to make every single save. He tried to make every single score. He never trusted any of those teammates. And that worked for us for a very long time, until we went into the Play BS Cup after winning the state championship. And then suddenly it couldn't be the Grayson's show anymore. They had to play as a team, and they were not used to that. And so I sat them down. I'm like, next year when you guys are juniors, the focus is going to be teamwork. We have to do teamwork. And so the next year they came in, I listened to their comms. I tried to make sure that I would rotate actually every day. Mondays I did League of Legends. Tuesdays I would listen to Rocket League comms. Wednesdays I would watch the Smash Kids. They were all there every day, but I rotated what I was doing every day. So I listened to their comms. I made sure that they were treating each other with respect, that the kids that were under the other kid were trying very hard, but that the kid that was at the top was still treating those other kids with respect. And he was, and it was never like he was super disrespectful in the beginning. He just wasn't respecting them on the field, if that makes sense. And so that year we went pretty far in the Play BS Cup, but we still got beat. I mean, there's other semi-pros out there in the Play BS Cup. And then the last year that I was there, which was their senior year, they went like to the quarterfinals or the semifinals for the Play BS Cup. I can't exactly remember, but they did very, very well. And then he got a $10,000 scholarship to play in college. So that was very nice.
Wow.
We had a signing day for that kid. Yeah. So that was cool to have my very first signing day. That was really neat. I had another kid get an offer for Smash, but I hadn't actually had him take it. He didn't end up wanting to go there. But this kid took the scholarship, so we had a signing day for him. So that's Rocket League. And then Smash, again, I got very lucky. This kid that came through the door competed in majors, just was an unbeatable monster with a me brawler, basically. And he was known in the state, not like just as a kid, not like, oh, I'm the top Smash kid. No, he was one of the top Smash players in the state, already ranked through the local system. I watched him play in the majors a couple times because I was just such a big fan of this kid. He was the most respectful kid. He had the word "me" shaved into his head.
Wow.
Yeah, he was just.
That's dedication.
And then the other thing for Smash that was just so amazing. Smash is one of those games I feel like where the kids come in and they're incredibly used to it being a party game, a very casual game. And that caused two things to happen. Number one, they would coach their opponents half the time. and I would tell them, please stop telling them how to beat you. They would say things like, when I shield, you should do this. And I was like, please don't do that. Please wait and don't actually ever do that. And it was just crazy. I was like, and that's when I learned that the Smash community is just a different animal than the rest of it. But the other thing that it caused is that when we went into practice, they just were not as serious as the other teams were. It was much more difficult to get them to play 1v1s, which is what we needed to do at the time, instead of like all of them trying to gang up on each other on the same switch. And I had like 13 kids, so they would all it was crazy. But that was the problem. So I'd say, okay, Fridays you can do whatever you want, but the rest of the week we have to do actual practice. And so, but I had this one kid. I had the kid that was the Mii Brawler that was just like so good at Smash, and then I had another kid that was super motivated to coach. He wanted to coach Smash someday. And so he said, I want to be the Smash coach. And I said, you know what? That's less work on me. So every day he would find a video specific to every kid's main and post it in the Discord so that every kid could watch something. And he bought the amiibos and would train them based on VODs that he watched of other kids at competitions.
Wow.
So like he would train them to act like the other kids from OESL so that the kids could have someone to train it. I just started calling him coach. And whenever they let like the coaches in this area, I was like, that's you, Javi, go. Now he still played. He was a Mario player. And I just wanted this kid to win so badly. But he was more of their coach than I was. I was like the coordinator. I was there to like make sure that they put effort into their practice, and Javi put together their practice. So I've never seen a kid that was just so motivated like that. But I took that and I just ran with it. It was crazy that I got to have him for so long. And then whenever he graduated, I like wrote him all these great recommendation letters and everything like that. I tried to do what I could for him at the end. And I think he did end up using it to get like a scholarship, but it wasn't necessarily esports scholarship, but I used the kind of the leadership aspect to help him get a scholarship. But yeah, so that was an incredible experience to just watch a kid kind of run with it. And then I kind of was like, well, if in a perfect world, this is what a Smash practice would look like. Now, there was no kid that would do that for League of Legends. We didn't have some crazy diamond player in the beginning. We did end up having a diamond player closer to the end of my time. But during the middle of my time, there was no diamond player. We were just a bunch of gold, silvers, and some bronzes. The only reason we were winning against the diamonds, and there was even a master bard one time that we went against, was because I really feel like we played as a team. Like, I was so on them constantly. I was constantly on the bot lane to have chemistry. I felt like the support and the ADC had to play together. I would schedule times for them to get on and play not League of Legends with each other because I wanted them to build chemistry as a team, but not on League. And then I used some of the drills that my coaches had taught me. There was an offensive kiting drill that I know of. There's a defensive kiting drill that I know of. And then there's different drills for different champions. I don't know all the champion drills, but I was taught some for Nautilus, some for, back then there was no Rel, but some for Leo. And then just various things. I didn't actually end up playing Rakan until much later. I know you guys know me as a Rakan player, but I didn't actually know Rakan at the time. So I was the Nautilus Lulu. But yeah, so that's kind of how I structured practice in the beginning and how I developed those programs. I went beyond what you asked, but that's fine.
Well, so you hit on something I think is super important, especially if there's a new coach, is you reference yourself as a program director. And I think a lot of times we get called the esports coach at the school, but you then eventually realize that you might be coaching 4 different titles or even more. And you aren't actually a coach. You might know one title and you can't know them all. And so you actually end up, like you said, you end up kind of coordinating these days to exist. But the students, you know, in my program, I had students who were they just loved to be a part of it. And they're like, I know everything about this game, but I am not as good as that person, but I still want a role. And so they become a caster or they become a strategist or something like that. So Yeah, I think that's awesome that you got to experience that. You had a kid that was not only good at the game of Smash, but then also had already decided, I really just want to be the support for the team and just coach them.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I definitely felt like I was a League of Legends coach. And I always told people that, like, I can help with comms on the other games, and
Yeah.
I can help with general life coaching skills. Like, we're not going to fight each other. We're not going to have a violent reaction when we lose. You know, some of those things that high school, especially some high school boys, I think, need to have. And I thought this was a great space for those kids to learn those things. But that was, I felt like, where my strengths were at the time, right? Uh, then I was also pretty good at connecting them with other stuff. Like, I ended up making pretty good friends with the local college. There's a very local college to us. So we no longer had to go down to Oklahoma City. We could travel 5 minutes to this new location, and we were allowed to use that for free. So, yeah, so I was pretty good at making friends with people that were interested in the success of my program as well, because what they benefited from that was they got to have the kids in their space. The kids got very used to it, and there were several of my kids that were very interested in going to UCO because we practiced in there every day.
Oh, absolutely.
So they got that benefit, and then we got a space. Like, I kept begging my admin for computers because that way we would not have to travel at all. We weren't allowed to have freshmen on our squad after the very first year because we were traveling, and freshmen can't drive. So they didn't want to have to worry about busing children. And then I was allowed to let a freshman in if I could verify that they would have transportation every single day. So, but freshmen couldn't just sign up for my class. And that really hurt my program a lot. So I kind of had that discussion with admin several times. Like, you guys have promised me this space, but there's no space. When is this going to happen? So that was like very esports directory, you know? I didn't feel like a coach at that moment. I felt like the athletic director.
So, one thing you brought up before, you said you had a player who ended up getting a scholarship to go on and play. Is that a one-off situation? Have you had multiple kids get scholarships to play, or do you have multiple kids who are playing on the collegiate level, maybe not necessarily with a scholarship, but have gone on to play on the collegiate scene?
I do have multiple kids that have gone on to play at the collegiate scene, and I had that one kid got the scholarship, and then I had 2 other kids end up getting offers. And that includes some kids from Deer Creek also. I know we spent my time talking about the beginning at Memorial, but even when I moved to Deer Creek, there were kids there that ended up not getting offers yet, but getting into the collegiate scene. So, yeah, that was definitely a part of it.
I kind of want to dive into this because, like, whenever I was in college, like, esports wasn't, esports in the collegiate scene wasn't really a thing. So for maybe like parents listening or something like that, can we kind of talk about what that's like? One, like being recruited to play on the collegiate level, like colleges reaching out, or like how do they get the, like, you know, I was fortunate to play, I played football in college, so to get my tape out there, it was like I was emailing coaches weekly with my tape is saying, hi, my name's Drake, and please watch my film and give me money for school, please. And so I was curious if it's like the same vein as that, or is it like a different cycle? Like how does that look?
So that's been definitely a struggle for me, is connecting with the collegiate scene. I've done several things to try. I do know several of the local coaches well. They know my name, and so I can go tell them, hey, I've got this kid. And they know because of the Rocket League kid that if I say I've got a kid, then I really have like a good kid. But like, I reached out on that Rocket League kid's behalf. I tried everything. I went to like North Texas. I tried to go to like Michigan. He told me what he thought all the top Rocket League schools were. And I contacted them and I'm like, I've got like a really good kid. And they're like, no, all of the kids say they're really good kids. And I was like, I know. They all tell me they're really good kids too. This is a good kid. Like, this kid is such a good player at Rocket League. He's winning everything, and not just in Oklahoma, because then they'd be like, well, it's Oklahoma. Of course he's winning. Well, by the way, the other team that was our biggest competitor, which was Noble, they had 2 SSLs on their team, and their SSLs were twins, by the way. So they did the twin brain thing. That was really tough for
Oh,
us.
cheating. Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, basically, right?
No,
So
it's
I
was
think I
like, this
remember that
kid-
Play versus Cup. Honestly, now that you
Yes.
mentioned
Oh
Noble,
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember
You
that.
guys helped me with that, didn't you? Like cast it for me
I
and
think
stuff.
I was like, I think we
Yeah.
casted that.
You did. That was what a game. They were our rivals for so long. But yeah, reaching out to colleges has been really difficult. I think what ended up happening was one of the local colleges contacted him, and we had sort of rules in Edmond that were already published for other sports that I just adopted for esports. So I took whatever model they had, the hours that they were allowed to contact kids dependent upon age, and I just put it in the Discord as these are the times that you're allowed to talk to students or DM students. You need to make sure that the parents know that you're talking to them. And I publish those rules. And then I would bring recruiters into the Discord and label them as recruiters. Now, I don't know that helped that kid necessarily. I think that kid was just he was A rank or whatever rank he is now. I don't know. He's probably X at this point. I'm not sure. But he was already very high ranked in 6-mans, and I think for that kid, that's what got him really noticed.
I was about to say, I wonder if what that kid was doing was he was already active. He was active outside of the high school scene to be known, and if he was playing in like RLCS or RLCSX, and he was already in that community, which is kind of one of those weird things about the esports community, is it's easy to be involved outside of the high school sports world, whereas like in football or soccer, it just is the high school sports world unless you're on a travel team or something like that. But I mean, even Drake's question of like, what do kids have to do now? Like, if you're not streaming and you don't broadcast, there's no way to see the proof of the kid's talent unless they have clips from when they play. So it's in this weird zone of how do you get recruited if there's not a lot of footage. Like the program has to be broadcasting, or you have to be in touch with one of these companies that does combines, and they attempt to try to help you out and get recruited. But there's a real visibility issue, and it's a big trust. It's like, just look at my MMR, trust me. And it's like, well, how?
Yeah, it's also this big dichotomy in this thing too, between like your S tier programs like your Maryvilles, who are literally putting players directly into the LCS for league, comparative to like Winthrop University, who I use that example because I talked to one of the coaches before, who their league program, like they're offering money to their league team, and they have players who are gold and plat players, right? So it's this weird spectrum of like,
I've heard that too. They just want to build programs, so they're like, we need people who are passionate to help us build programs, and so you can get scholarships without being a grandmaster, essentially.
And I think for him too, because he played at that very competitive level, he met collegiate players that were already in the scene, and they told their coaches about him. So I really think it was because he had his own network of kids. Now, there have also been collegiate recruiters at the high school events that I've gone to before. Oklahoma, when OESL put on the stuff last year, one of the colleges came and they offered my entire Rocket League team like a huge scholarship for each one of them if they would come and play as a team. So
they were offered the whole group. They offered all wow,
every kid, each of the
that's amazing.
They offered them a scholarship, and so they didn't end up doing other things because although they wanted to play in college, they didn't want to go to college, like a college that was specifically they're going there for esports. They wanted to go somewhere else. So, but there have been, I think OESL is kind of unique in that we've brought in college recruiters to our stuff to scout.
So I want to ask you about that event, because that's the local Oklahoma event. Was that how many teams were at that event, and what kind of event was it? Was it like a huge all playoff bracket or only top 8? How many teams were there?
Right. So playoffs initially occur online and then transition into an in-person state event where it depends on the game. But for Smash, it's the top 64 solo people that go to state. And then they run a 64-person tournament. Now in the fall, we do crew battles. And so the top 32 crews of 3 go. And then for league, the top 4 teams end up going to state. and then everything's a double elimination. So, and then it's just the OESL is massive. So I don't even remember how many games that we usually do, but it's quite a few, and we have quite a few schools involved in it as well. So it's a pretty massive in-person state event, so much so that this year we've actually had to split it into 2 days, and now we're going to do it over a 2-day cycle. We're going to have some games on one day for state and then some games on another day for state. So, and then I usually don't sign up to run anything at state, and then when I get there, they're like, hey, you're going to run League of Legends, because I'm kind of the league person on the board, and they're like, okay, here you go. And so I end up TOing the league event, which I'm used to now, so like I just do it. I'm like, okay, this person.
You don't sign up because you know you will be asked when you get there.
I hope I don't sign up, because I think if I don't sign up, maybe this year someone else will run it. They'll have someone else do it. That's very foolish thought.
Someone just writes your name in. It's like, oh, Kate will do it.
I think so. No, well, I mean, I'm on the board. I go to the board meetings, and they're like, Kate will run. And they don't talk about it. And so I just assume someone else has got it. And then I get there, they're like, well, actually. And so that kind of happens. Or sometimes I'll go to like a Smash. We have qualifiers that happen. There's like a system. So you have to go to a seeding event, and then you go to like a qualifier for state. You have to make the top in the qualifier for your region, or there's open qualifiers that you can try to go to. So sometimes I'll go to those qualifiers. I have not signed up. I am a board member, but I haven't signed up to like TO that event. And then I'll get there, and they're like, hey, we need some help. And so I'll like run the middle school one while they run the high school one. And then I'm just kind of used to being asked whenever I walk in. So I always tell the kids when we go to state, I'm like, I will end up being there all day. No matter what happens, if Deer Creek is out in the first hour, I will have to stay. So unless you plan on having your parents pick you up, you will be there all day. So you should have your parents pick you up, because I will be there all day, and you will be sitting there being like, can we go home? And I will say no. So you should have your parents pick you up.
No, but you could be my assistant.
Yeah, it's crazy. But those are huge events. And so sometimes they take place in the bottom of a gym, and then there's like all these different areas in the gym where different games are going on. And there's always some sort of tech issue. So, half the computers will turn off. One time we had like a power issue, and then we have to like juggle when different matches are going to be played for different things. And then one always runs to like 2 a.m. and it's just very tough, I think. Although last year, I don't think we actually ended up running that long. I think we were done much earlier in the day, but we did have an issue with the Fortnite stuff or something. I don't remember. There's always some tech issue, like huge events like that. I think that's just going to happen,
It's a guarantee.
All right, let's kind of move in to kind of our final points here. And I want to talk about what's coming up, like what's the plans for the future of your program. And it kind of closes out with some tips and maybe some pitfalls that new coaches or people trying to start up a program typically run into, or maybe some things that you ran into, not just when you restart up, but even now that maybe you have some advice for coaches as they try to navigate the ever-changing environment that is school and esports and people in general.
Oh, yeah. So as far as future plans for my program, I'm trying to, at Deer Creek now, because I've transitioned from Memorial to Deer Creek, we're trying to make it more and more competitive. We had like 60, 70, 80 kids at one point in the program. And so this was like, we did tryouts last year, and we limited the number of kids that could get into the class for esports. Anyone can come after school and do esports, but a lot of them just chose not to. So we really tried to pare it down to those kids that were truly interested in the competition portion, because a lot of kids wanted to play video games during school instead of do esports. And I think there's a pretty big difference there. And so those kids that just wanted to do that, we kind of let that go. I mean, there's only 24 computers in that room, and we had like 60 kids. So kids would be sitting on the floor, playing on their phones. It just wasn't good before. And then now that we've transitioned into this kind of more competitive environment, it's a lot easier for us 3 coaches to really focus all the time. And we still have days that are kind of crazy because we compete in 2 different leagues and a ton of different sports, because Deer Creek allows first-person shooters. So we're able to compete in quite a few more sports at Deer Creek, which has been really good for the program. Like we play Rainbow Six, we play Call of Duty, we play Halo whenever we're able to play Halo. Just all those games, Overwatch, Valorant, really anything that has a competition for high school, we're able to play. So there's been no issue with that, which has been so nice. But that's kind of the future plans, is to keep going in that direction. Try to make sure that the kids feel some sort of success from that, pushing really hard, because I want them to see that. I want them to connect the very hard work with the success, and then see that transition so that they're more willing to keep doing that, really honestly. And I'm so thankful for my other 2 coaches that have really jumped in. I mean, one of the coaches was there already. Actually, they were both kind of there already whenever I got there. So it's just been really nice for them to kind of help push it in that direction. But yeah, as far as pitfalls go for new coaches, I think the biggest thing that I've seen for new coaches is like a lot of them try to jump into a ton of different things at once. And I feel like I really benefited because I just did league first and it was like my game. And some coaches don't even have a game. Actually, those are some of the ones I respect the most, because they really are just trying to have a place for these kids to do stuff. But if there's one game that you feel the most comfortable with, start with that and then grow your program, because I really feel like if you try to do everything at once, you're going to be running games on if you do play BS, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all like 3 or 4 games at the same time. And it's going to be madness for you. And then another thing I would say is, don't be afraid to rely on your kids. They really will help you. As long as you understand that you've got to pick the right kid, right? And so if you don't have a kid like that, then it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle. Definitely grow your program at your own pace. That way you're able to do that. But if you have kids that can help, rely on their expertise. You will probably not know as much on any particular game as your kids to start out with. I know more about league now than most of the kids that are on my current team, but definitely starting out, it was not that way. Even though I'd had all that coaching and stuff. For Rocket League, I don't think I'll ever know as much about Rocket League as the kids do. For Smash, for sure. I mean, I could play Smash and try to learn it, but starting out, I would not know. And then just be willing to be really flexible and continue to push. So whenever your admin puts some sort of red tape in front of you, just continue to find out what the next step is going to be, and then just push through that. So I think that's my advice for new coaches.
Do you do you broadcast? Do you have that component to the program?
I believe we have broadcasted a few times, but we don't have like a consistent broadcast. That's definitely been a struggle for me. If you're kind of curious where that's some area that I could improve in, is getting a stream out there, because the superintendent wants to watch these games. Yeah. He's very proud of the esports program. He is personally invested in the esports program. He comes to the room sometimes. Yeah. But he really wants a stream, and I have yet to kind of, just because there's so many different games going on, it's hard for me to make that jump, but I need to make that jump, especially now that we have a few free computers. So yeah, just because we don't, after school, we limit it's almost like sectionals for the band. Like, so Fortnite only comes in on this day. They don't come in every single day, so that we're busy every day, but the kids don't have after school practice every day. I mean, they have 7th hour every day, but they don't come after school every day.
Yeah. And that could be an opportunity for some of those kids that they do want to be involved, but they're never going to make starter for, whatever, but they can still get some time and have a places to make videos or stream or capture content.
Yeah, for sure. And I haven't had a ton of kids that were super interested in that. And I think that's another of the struggles too, is I just haven't found that kid that's like, oh, this is my passion, or this is kind of where I want to take this. So once I find that kid, I know that'll be super easy, because we already have the software downloaded on a few of the computers.
Hey, I have one more question here before we send it out. This is something, I'll get serious for a second. It's something very passionate to me. Do you think that pineapple belongs on pizza?
No. My fiance and I have talked about this multiple times.
Okay, good, because I need a reason. We can't just accept yes or no. So please expand.
No, the acidity of the pineapple does not balance well with the other bit of it. Plus, I just tasted it and it's awful. Who would do that?
Yeah, no, flavor is terrible.
That goes in the trash can. That doesn't go in my mouth.
That's my favorite.
I am not a garbage
That's my favorite
can,
pizza,
you don't
but
put
okay.
trash in my mouth. I'm sorry, no.
I was gonna
And
say, yeah,
also,
I'm.
no with
Oh,
no. There's
Throw some-
no.
where's this gonna? No.
pineapple
Where's
on
this gonna
pizza.
go? What's the next one? You said also with. What's the also here?
Oh, also no pineapple and ham together. No Hawaiian pizza.
Oh
That
my
is like what that really is.
God.
Add some jalapenos. You've got yourself the perfect pizza.
Oh, dude.
Jalapeno
The
and
sweet
pineapple?
and the savory, yes.
No,
Okay,
that's
okay.
so. If you want, that is the official. No,
That's the official. That's the official
that's the
stance.
official
Okay.
Deer Creek stance. No,
All
I don't
right,
think
well,
so because my
bef-
fiance's there. He would say
We need to
he
keep a
loves
tally of this,
pineapple on
Coop.
pizza,
We need a tally board right now. We're
The
2
pineapple pizza
for
tally,
1
yeah.
against.
I do.
Mhm.
There's one thing I just want to. I can't. You said this really early on, just to reiterate. You asked a lot of questions early on, and I think I was talking to some coaches a couple days ago at a conference, and I was like, you have to rely on the people in the building who also care about the kids. And if you're not sure what to do as a new coach or program director, just ask around. Like, what am I supposed to do next? How do I make this legitimate? How do I get a PTO involved? How do I get a booster club? Like, go to the people who've already been doing it. Go to the athletic department. Ask coaches how they structure practices. Yes, it's going to look different, but nobody can know all the answers early on. But like you said, you just were like, what do I do next? What do I do next? And I didn't do that early on. I was like, oh, I'm just going to be the esports guy. And it took me a season to be like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing as far as like the admin academic side. And so I think that was just great that you mentioned that. You were just like, I had to keep asking those questions. So that's a huge way to not burn out, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it helped me to push through the red tape because then somebody had told me this is what you need to do, and then I just did it. And then they couldn't really deny me because they had kind of just told me that that was the ticket to get in. And so I had done it. And so I was like, here you go. Now what's the next step? And then they gave me the next step that I would do. So it really did help a lot.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think that wraps it up for our first episode. Kate, thank you so much for taking time to join us, kind of talk through your esports journey. I really appreciate you being on here and just sharing. Also, just great time. Like, it was really cool, the things you had to say.
Oh, thank you
Really
so much.
appreciate you.
Yeah, of course.
For everyone who's kind of following along with us, thank you for watching. And some things coming up, our goal here is to just kind of walk through and interview a bunch of esports professionals. So we're going to start with people in Scholastics esports, kind of move on to maybe some people in the industry, kind of throughout there's kind of idea of like the broad scope. Esports is more than just playing the game, so we kind of interview people and kind of get the full encompassing area that is esports. But we're excited for the future and excited that you watch this episode with us, and hopefully we didn't scare you off and you'll keep tagging along. Coop, anything to say before we sign off here?
Nope. Just thanks for listening, and we'll have more of these to come and more great coaches like Kate.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening. So after we stopped recording, we learned one more thing about Kate that we'd be remiss not to add. So I meant to ask you this: if you're teaching anything other than coaching, and you are, and would you like to tell us what you just said, because it's kind of a crazy story?
Yeah. So when I left Memorial and I interviewed at Deer Creek, it was all about chemistry. I'm a chemistry teacher, have been for a while. And they asked me at the end of the chemistry interview, they were like, is there anything else that you want to tell us? And I said, well, I'm a really good esports coach. My program wins a lot. I was coach of the year 1 year. And the head principal, who is not normally in those meetings, said, that's actually why I'm here. We want to show you, we know that you're a really good esports coach. We want to recruit you from Edmond. We want to show you the esports facility that we already have, that Edmond promised you they would give you, but we actually have it here. So we're going to walk you over there, and we're going to show you the room, and we're going to show you all the computers, and we want you to come coach esports. And what can we offer you? What would be interesting for you to teach so that you'll come coach for us?
Wow.
And I said, AP Chem, that's what I've always wanted to teach. I really want to teach AP Chemistry. I knew I would never get the job at Memorial because the guy that works there has like a 99% pass rate on the AP Chem test. And so I was not going to get that job, nor did I want it from that guy. But I got the AP Chem job because of esports. Esports was what got me the job at Deer Creek.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It's been
that's
kind of
amazing.
a wild ride, you know? Yeah. I never expected, like, you know, they say that about like other coaches, like, you know, the football coach gets recruited for that. And then, but the superintendent was even involved. He personally drove me over to the facility, which was across the parking lot only, but so he could talk to me in the car about like,
Wow.
this is what our stuff is. This is, we're really interested in having you here. And I'm going to tell the other superintendent that I took you from her school.
You're the Eric Dickerson of esports coaches. This is your version of the Trans A&M. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, it was very scary because I was like, oh, this time I'm going to fly under the radar. No one's going to know who I am. I'm going to be so chill. And because at Edmond, like the superintendent knew my name because I was constantly asking her questions about esports and she was asking me questions about esports. And then I get there and the superintendent already knows my name whenever I walk in. And he's like, he was in, like, he took me over there. They showed me the whole facility, which is a couple rooms that they've transitioned to being esports rooms, which is really cool. And he had put up all the lights in the rooms himself, and he had put up several artwork and stuff. He's so proud of it, and he wants me to be a part of it. And he's like, we really want our esports program to be competitive. This was a bond issue for us. Come coach at our school. And so that was really impressive to me, you know, but they were really passionate about esports. And they were willing to give me AP chemistry, which I was really excited about. I love AP Chem. Like, it's definitely been one of the things that I love about Deer Creek is teaching AP Chem. So, you know, it's just been really nice. I love Deer Creek. So 3 coaches, you know, I get to go home some nights because the other coaches take care of stuff. It's
fancy.
That's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
So there you go. You can get headhunted and recruited as esports coach across the whole state. That's amazing. So I just didn't want that to not make it because that's just such a great story. So all right, this time I think now we're signing off. So thanks for everybody for listening, and we'll catch you next time.